Hey there, Professor Fields here with another lesson in constitutional law. This one is on the 5 requirements for admissibility of a confession in court. Now, confessions are powerful tools. We use them a lot in law enforcement to get convictions. They're often critical parts of the case. However, you'll find that sometimes the police do things wrong and the confessions are obtained illegally. You may have seen recently in the news the Chicago Police Department, a number of cases were thrown out because of coerced confessions. And we'll talk about some of the 5 different grounds that confessions can be thrown out. The first provision is the 14th and 5th Amendment Due Process Clause. Now, basically what this says is it's a violation to admit into evidence any confession that was obtained illegally. In other words, it was obtained either out of one of the other provisions we're talking about, or that it was result of an illegal arrest, illegal stop, illegal seizure, something like that. If the initial action is illegal, then everything that follows is not admissible. We'll talk about that in the exclusionary rule in a minute. Exclusionary rule, we learned about that in a previous module. The fruit of the poison tree. Basically, it excludes confessions as well as any other kind of physical evidence. So anytime the police illegally obtain evidence, the remedy for the defendant is that the case gets thrown out of court. Next provision is the McNamara Delay and Arraignment Rule. Constitution and state laws both require the suspects to be taken before a magistrate for arraignment without an undue delay after an arrest. And the reason that confessions obtained during the period between the arrest and the arraignment are so critical is that most of the time when you're first arrested, you haven't appeared in court, so you may or may not have a lawyer assigned to you, or you may not have a lawyer you've obtained. And a lot of times you're kept in a jail cell by yourself. You're second guessing yourself. You're thinking, "Wait, they must have something on me, or I wouldn't be here." So those are pretty touchy times to get a confession. Of course, that's when most confessions are obtained immediately subsequent to the arrest. That's at least in my experience as a investigator. In a picture here, this is Gitmo Bay. For those of you who don't know that picture, it's a picture of Gitmo Bay. Rules don't quite apply when you're not in the United States, even though that's United States property down there. Look it up. Then you got the Miranda Rule. And Miranda Rule is born out of the Fifth Amendment, which you learned about earlier. And basically says when you're in custody, you have to be given your Miranda rights, where we tell you that you have the right to remain silent, then you have the right to have a lawyer represent you before any kind of questioning, and you have to get a voluntary waiver. So almost every kid nowadays from about the 5th grade on can tell you about the Miranda Rule. As we discussed earlier in class and any other AJ class you may have taken, the Fifth Amendment is applied since the Constitution was written. However, the police weren't required to read you those rights until the Miranda Rule. And I asked people just to, can you tell me what the Eighth Amendment says? Can you tell me what the Ninth Amendment says? And that kind of puts it in perspective. In 1964, if I'd asked anybody what the Fifth Amendment said, I probably got the same response as if I'd asked what the Eighth Amendment or what the Ninth Amendment is right now. Next provision is the right to counsel contained in the Sixth Amendment, and basically says that the Sixth Amendment right to counsel attaches upon initiation of prosecution, which in most cases is when the prosecutor files charges, and the charges are filed and they're sent to court for an arraignment. We've talked about that in previous classes. We'll talk about that later on in this module also, about when the arraignment starts. So that's it for this segment. On to the next.